Okay, welcome back everyone. So up till the last lecture, we have talked about everything about DDL. So what all we have learned that was related to the structure. That's why it was a DDL, data definition language. So now today we are going to talk about DCL, a data control language. What do you mean by controlling the data? So simply, controlling the data is possible only if you have multi-user setup, because controlling the data is not from somewhere else, controlling the data from the users. One user data can be controlled by another user's data. So this DCL helps us to create a structure in a multi-level securities. Simple here. So in the DCL, basically we have only and only the two commands, grant and revoke. Simple. Grant means allowing and revoke is nothing but taking back the privilege. So here grant is granting the privilege and revoke is taking the privilege back. Very simple. One thing to be remembered, that granting and revoking can be done only by two users. One, database administrator. Second, owner of the database. What's the meaning of the owner of the database? Simple, the user who have created the database is the owner of that particular database. Now for an example, I log in with HR. That means I have logged in a workspace of HR. So there, HR is the owner of the database. And second, administrator. Administrator has a right on all the workspaces. So simple here. So one thing is called a grant. Second thing is called a revoke. Okay, let's understand with an example. Simply pay attention carefully here. Let's come here. Now you can see this. I have started one application Express. Let's create a new user here. Okay, so we'll create a new user here. So for that, we have to give a new username. So I'm giving the username as user 2021. Okay, so just we are giving the username according to the year user 2021. Here also I'm using a user 2021. Correct? Let's give a password. And here also we'll give a password. And we'll say create the workspace. So we have to just wait for this workspace to be get created. Okay, it will check our patience. Yes, it has successfully created. So we got a message, successfully created workspace user 2021. To begin, click here. So now I'll log in here. I say click here to log in. Now my workspace is user 2021. Username is 2021 and I'll give a password what we have provided just now. So we have logged in. We'll go to the SQL workshop, SQL commands. I hope you remember that in our last lectures, we have created a table called students with the help of create table statement. So now let's check the record of students. How do we check the record? With the help of select statement. So we'll say select star from students 2021. And if I execute, we are getting a message, table or view does not exist. It is very clear that we have logged in with user 2021, and this we have created in the workspace of HR. So obviously, when I write a syntax, select star from the table, this table will be searched within user 2021. And there, till now, we have not created a single table also. So obviously, this error should be there. Now, if you want to access the table from some other workspace, you have to mention the workspace name before the object with the dot operator. So we can say HR dot. Now, if I execute, still I'm getting the message, table or view does not exist. So is there any mistake we are doing in searching the table name? So we'll do one thing. Now we'll log in with the HR. Okay, so I'll not close this. I'll open another session with SQL Plus. So there we'll log in with the HR and we'll check whether this table is existing or not. Okay, hold it and pay attention carefully here. So I open now SQL Plus. Okay, and I come to this. I'm sure you're able to see the screen now. That is a SQL Plus. I'm connecting. Now here, let me give the username as HR. And we'll give the password of HR. Okay, so finally we got a message connected to this database with HR. So here we'll check select star from students 2021. We have a records. Then when I go to that my user 2021 workspace, why I'm not able to access? Now here DCL come into the picture, data control language. Usually whoever is creating the object, he is the owner of that database and he only has a right to work on that object. But you are allowed to give a permission to other user also to accept or you can work on that object. So here, let's first go there. Okay, here we are executing and we are getting the message. So this is actually not correct. Table or view does not exist. Why it say table or view does not exist? Because user 2021 does not have a right to go to the HR workspace. Simple. Now, either administrator or HR can grant permission to students 2021. Then only he will be able to access it. Now here we cannot grant because here we are logged in with user 2021. So let's move to the session where we have logged in with HR. So how to grant? So it's very simple syntax. Pay attention and by heart. So if you want to give a permission, you have to use a keyword called as grant. After the grant, you have to choose the privilege. Privilege means what you want to grant. Now, HR is able to insert, update, delete, select, or he can do everything on the object. But it is not compulsion that you give all the privileges to another user. So now we want to give a permission of select. So we say the grant select on, now simple, grant object privilege name on, then you have to say the object name. कौन से object हम grant कर रहे हैं? We are granting on students 2021. So we say the grant select on students 2021. Then you have to use the username to whom you are granting. So we'll say user 2021. This is the name of the user, and I execute. And we got a message, grant succeeded. Now we'll move to the session where we have logged in with user 2021. So now here we are with the user 2021. Now if I try to execute this, he's able to access the data. That is the only called as controlling the data. Controlling means only the two things, whether allowing or disallowing. That's it. So grant command allow it. Now he's able to. Now let's say he want to change the age of Priya. So what syntax he is going to use? Update HR dot students 2021 set age equal to 26, where roll number equal to 5. And you will see he got a message, insufficient privilege. Now, privilege is provided only for select, not for the any other action. So if you want to allow him to update also, same way, you can use the same syntax, but there instead of select, we will use a update. Okay, look at practically here. We'll go here. We have used a grant select on this. Instead of that, now we'll say grant update on students 2021 to user 2021. Again, I got a message, grant succeeded. Now let's come back there. And here, if I execute, one row is updated. Simple here. Priya's age changed to this is 26. Now, if you want to delete the record of this XYZ, so how do you write syntax? Delete from HR dot students 2021. So delete from HR 2021, where roll number equal to 6. Again, he got a message, insufficient privilege. So I hope with this example you understood that DCL is allowing or disallowing from another users. So simple here. He's able to update, but he's not able to delete. He's able to select, but he's not able to delete, because we have granted update and select, but we have not granted the delete. So simple here. So in that case, what, let's say now once he got a permission to update, he can update anything, but we don't want him to now update anymore. So we want to take this permission back. अपडेट वाली जो परमिशन हमने प्रोवाइड की है वो परमिशन हमें उससे वापस लेनी है. So the second command can be helpful in this. Second command is revoke. Revoke means taking the privilege back. Now, one thing to be remember, you can revoke only those privileges which you have been granted. जो आपने ग्रांट की है सिर्फ आप उसी को वापस रिवोक कर सकते हो. Very simple here. So let's try to revoke this. So we'll go here and check it out again. Now instead of grant, we will use a revoke. Revoke. Update. We want to revoke the update, so give update on students 2021. Now hence we are revoking, so instead of to, it will be the from. Now if I execute this, we got a message, revoke succeeded. Correct? So the what privileges we have given earlier has been taken back. So let's go and check it out. Now, earlier we have updated, right? Let's check it out here. Yes, it got updated. It is 26. Now let's make it 25 again. But now he is not able to update it. The reason is the privilege what we have granted has been taken back. So I hope it is clear to everyone that grant is allowing and revoke is taking the permission back. Very simple. Let's come back here. So simply you can say DCL commands are used to assign security levels in database. Which involve multiple user setup. अगर आपका सेटअप सिंगल यूजर है तो आप उस पर DCL यूज नहीं कर सकते. They are used to define or grant role and access the privileges. Simple. So there are two types of DCL commands we have just seen, grant and revoke. Syntax wise, very simple. Grant, keyword, on, keyword, to, keyword. Simple. So we can say grant, select, on, table name, or you can call it as a object name, to user name. Same thing with a revoke. Revoke, privilege name, on, object name, from, user name. So this is what you have talked about is called a basic DCL. So now, actually, when we talk about a grant, complete syntax of grant is this. Grant, privilege name, on, object name, to. Now in the to, we have just talked about username. Instead of username, you can use a public or role name as well. So what the public and role name is. So we have seen that we have already used the username. Now public is also a user which is used only for DCL statements. Now everybody know the meaning of public. Public means everyone. So when I want to grant a particular privilege to all available user in the database, we can use keyword public instead of a particular username. So that privilege will be granted to all available users. Simple. Third thing is called a role name. What do you mean by the role? Now what happened that in an organization, there are certain departments, or you can say the certain groups, which have a certain privilege, and certain department has a certain privileges. So in that department, everybody should get the same privilege. In another department, they should get all the same privilege. So what do we do? Instead of giving the privilege to individual user, we create a role. Now, for an example, a manager is a role, correct? Salesman is a role. Now, we create a role and we grant a privilege to that particular role. Then that role we give to the users of those particular roles. So automatically, all the privileges which we have granted to the role will be granted to all users who are having that role. Okay. Let's understand with an example. Let's come here. I clear the screen. Now, for role, you have to follow the 3 steps. Step number 1, create a role. Step number 2, assign the privilege to that role. Step number 3, assign the role to the users. Now, who all users will that get assigned with that role will get all the privileges which is assigned in that role. So what the role is a bunch of collective privileges. That's it. Now, create role. Role can be created only by the administrator. But here we have logged in with HR. So syntax for creating a role is create role, and you have to give a role name. We can see RL 2021, role 2021. This is the correct answer, but I got a message insufficient privilege because the role can be created only by administrator, and currently we have not logged in with administrator. So let's connect as administrator. So we'll say connect as sysdba, connecting as a sysdba. Now it is asking me the username, system, and I'm giving the password. Connected. So now I have been connected as a system database administrator. Now if I execute the statement, create role, role name, I got a message, role is created. Now role is available to us. So we have to provide or assign the privileges to this role. So how to assign? Same syntax. Now that can be assigned by administrator also, because we know that administrator has a right to all the workspaces. So we'll say that, let's say we say the grant update. You remember that we have removed the update from user 2021. So we say the grant update on what object we are using? Students. But this students 2021 belongs to the workspace of HR, and we have logged in as an administrator. So if I'm not mentioning the HR, this will be searched in the workspace of administrator. So we give the HR to, instead of giving the username, I'm using a role name, RL 2021. Okay, I got an error that table or view does not exist. Reason, the spelling mistake. So we'll just make it as students. And we got a message, grant succeeded. Same way, I can grant delete also. Correct? I can grant select also. So now this role has a 3 privileges: update, delete, and select. Correct? So now, if I check this update, still I'm getting an insufficient privilege because अब हमने जो privileges grant किए वो role को किए ना कि particular users को. Simple. So that's why still we are getting an insufficient privilege. So now let's go there again. And now we'll grant, instead of a specific privilege, entire role RL 2021 to user 2021. अब ये रोल हमने किसको ग्रांट कर दिया? यूजर 2021 को. सो इस RL में जितने प्रिविलेज हैं, अपडेट, डिलीट और सिलेक्ट, all are granted to user 2021. Very simple here. Now let's check. Now if I try to update, he is able to update. अब ये रोल हम जिस भी यूजर को ग्रांट करेंगे, that user will get all 3 privileges automatically. So what's the benefit of creating a role? It looks like a duplication that first you provide to the role, then provide the role to the user. Now, what happened that from some department we want to remove a specific privilege. Now, if we have granted that privilege to a role, instead of revoking from individual users, you can revoke directly from the role. Very simple here. So that's the benefit of the role. So I hope the role is clear. Let's come back here. So grant privilege name on object name to user name is clear. Specific user. Public, all available users. Role name, a particular role to you are granting the permission. Now last thing is called the optional part. That optional part is called a with grant option. What is a with grant option? With grant option, when you're using these keywords, then that user to whom you have granted the privilege also have a privilege to grant same privilege to another user. Very simple. Now, for an example, we have granted to the user 2021. Now, user 2021 can have a privilege for himself, but he cannot give same privilege to another users. But when we use a with grant option, he has a privilege to grant same thing to another users as well. So basically this can help in a team leader concept. Admin provide the privileges to the team leader with grant option. So the team leader has a privilege to grant those privilege to his team according to the requirement. Now same thing with the revoke. Revoke privilege name on object name from user, public or role name. So user, public or role name is the same thing. So I hope this DCL is clear. Now in the DCL, what all we have used, you can just see what the privilege name is the access right or privilege granted to the user. One example we have used as select, insert, update, all that stuff. Object name, any object what we create in the database is the object. Example, tables, views, stored procedures, sequences, anything. Username, we know it very well. Public, all available users. Roles, That is nothing but a set of privileges grouped together. With grant option, allow a user to grant access right to other users. One thing always to be remembered, only database administrator or owner of the database object can provide or revoke the privileges on the database object. Very simple here. Now, simple when we talk about the privileges and roles. Now, sometimes the question is asked, how many types of privileges are there? So there are the two types of privileges. One is a system privilege, one is an object privilege. Now, differences in system and object is system privileges are related to the structure. That is, altering the structure, creating the structure, or removing the structure. So anything related to the DDL privilege is a system privileges. Mostly, the system privileges are granted by administrator. Second is the object privilege. Object privilege means using that object, or you can say all the DQL and DML privileges. Simple: execute, select, insert, update, delete, execute in the case of stored procedures. Roles. I hope the role is very clear. We have discussed in a very detailed manner. That is a roles. So how to create a role? Syntax is very simple. Create role, role name. That's it. So I hope nobody has any questions, any doubts with regards to the DCL. Simplest, remember the two things, grant and revoke.